I don't want another one. I don't need another one. That is it. That's the
but
answer.
it is it. And it is this because you got this wisely in your life, because it gives you this idea of sublime success through creativity. It makes your life, turns your life into sublime success. It's in your way of living your life in the most successful way. And that it goes beyond your YouTube channel.
Hello friends, this is a really special interview. I hope you hang around for it. It's with Harmen Mesker, someone who has spent literally decades and decades studying the Yi Jing, taking apart the ancient symbols and unraveling all the deeper meanings behind them. Let me play for you the opening of the first video that I ever watched of Harmen doing his thing.
Yes, I have a Dutch accent. If you need subtitles, use the button below.
This video, which I'd really urge you to watch if you're into the Yi, gives a fantastic introduction to his approach. He, I think, quite brilliantly challenges the typical assumptions that the text alone kind of holds all the answers, encouraging us to engage directly with the hexagrams and the trigrams instead. It's a fresh, but I think also profoundly grounded and authentic take on how we can use the Yi Jing in more meaningful and immediate ways.
You cast a hexagram, you don't cast a piece of text, you cast a hexagram. So that is actually the answer. And the text is mainly an addition to that hexagram, at least from my point of view.
Picture an owl, not just any owl, but one of those ancient, quiet observers perched high in a tree, absorbing everything around them with that soft, steady gaze that they have. This is Harmen, in my imagination at least. Whether you're curious about the power of hexagrams or the layers of meaning in the Yi Jing, Harmen has a way of making it all feel very accessible, just like that owl sort of handing us, or in this case, the sort of magpie idiot, me, the magpie idiot, a key to the mysteries that we all seek answers to. He even does, as you will see, an extensive divination for me in this video that, I don't know, it just completely blew my mind. Exploding head emoji, exploding head emoji, exploding head emoji. It's all about moving, changing, moving beyond what's written, what's prescribed and expected, and tapping into what truly resonates on an individual and personal level for you in your engagement with the Yi, trusting your intuition to unlock the deeper wisdom hidden in these magical symbols. So join us as we dive deep, really deep. Oh boy, I do like to go deep. And we were able to do that in this video. Enjoy.
And an oracle, as far as I'm concerned, would never give you an answer that you can't understand.
Okay. Here we go. Harmen Mesker, welcome. Hello.
Thank you, Stephen.
I'm really so pleased to be able to have this second. This is our second conversation, but the first one wasn't recorded. But our first conversation had a real powerful effect on me, and I, went off and watched even more of your videos. I think I've watched all your videos now on your channel.
Oh wow!
The first thing that I most associate with you, right, which is sticking or really focusing on the Zhou Yi and the trigrams. Where did that come from?
Well, actually, it came from my study of the early usage of the Zhou Yi and of usage of oracles in China in general. When I looked at the few examples that we have of Yi Jing usage, like the ones that are recorded in the Zhuochuan and the Guoyu, you see that they not only refer to the text of the Zhou Yi, but also to the trigrams. And actually, in a lot of these readings, these examples, the trigrams play a very important role. And I began to think that's interesting because here in the West, but also currently in China, the emphasis is being put on the text. and not much is being done with the trigrams or the hexagrams and the lines, etc. I mean, a lot of these books mention these parts, but in the end, most of these books still resort to the text of the Tao Yi, which it isn't wrong. But I thought I always like to go back to the earliest usage of something, in this case, the Zhao Yi. And I thought, well, if they used the trigrams in the old days so much, then I think we should also try to do that. And I tried to find my own way with that. And that is actually how it started. And the fact that when you consult the Zhao Yi, you not only get a piece of text, but you get this hexagram. Actually, your whole consultation starts with this hexagram. You cast a hexagram. You don't cast a piece of text. You cast a hexagram. So that is actually the answer. And the text is mainly an addition to that hexagram, at least from my point of view. And so, and that is why I put a lot of emphasis on the usage of these trigrams, because a lot of Yi Jing users are not familiar with that specific part of the oracle. I have had many students who said, well, I've been studying the Zhao Yi for over 30 years. And this is the first time that I've learned to work with trigrams. I thought, well, that's value for money, I think. But
that is interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, most people are fixed to the.
But why? Yeah, I mean, I guess equally, I hadn't really thought that much. I mean, it's strange though, because of course, when we are using, I mean, a lot of us are still, right, using, this version. And of course, unless we have them all memorized, when we actually go to find our trigram, we're always faced with those, with that table of the hexagram. We always face with that table of, the trigrams running down the side but it sort of becomes, at that moment, it's for a lot of people, unless we're really focusing on the trigrams, it becomes a case of, oh well, okay, which two trigrams go together to make the thing I want, as opposed to actually, well, hang on a second, before I do that, let me actually look at the trigrams.
Yeah, and there are several advantages to that method, because when you know the value of the trigrams, you're not dependent on the text of the book anymore. So you can consult the Zhao Yi anywhere you are, every place. When you're on the train, you can consult the I Ching immediately without having the book with you, because you've learned the value of 8 trigrams. Everyone can learn 8 trigrams. So so you can immediately cast the coins in the train, and all the rest of the passengers will look strange at you. But anyway, you can consult the oracle everywhere. That's the main advantage, I think. And you're not dependent on the text anymore. There are 450 different pieces of text in the Zhao Yi. And there are only 8 trigrams. So working with the trigrams, I think, is much easier than working with the text. A lot of people who use the Zhao Yi are about the text. And a lot of all these questions that you see on these discussion boards from people that don't understand the answer from the Zhao Yi, a lot of that misunderstanding is connected to the text of the Zhao Yi. And I hardly ever see that happening with the trigrams. So for some reason, the trigrams are much easier to work with. And also, because there are only 8 trigrams and they work together, that opens up a whole new field of meanings and associations.
It does indeed, but then of course that also then beggars the question, and it's a question I've been, beggaring myself with, which is, well, where's the book on the trigrams?
Yeah,
right. Like, yeah, I want to. I mean, I've even mentioned this with you. Like maybe we, what would be amazing to just do like 8 videos, 1-hour videos on each of those trigrams, or a discussion on each of those trigrams, because why has that not happened? Why has somebody not sat down and written extensively on all the trigrams?
Well, actually, that has been done for some part, because in the 10 wings, the eighth wing, the Shogwa, is actually a chapter on the 8 trigrams. It contains the basic images of these 8 trigrams. And in later centuries, these images were expanded. There were a lot of more images were connected to the trigrams. So in China, it has been done. And I can understand where you're coming from, Steve. At the same time, I'm a little bit reluctant to write a book or make videos on each of the trigrams, because that would give a very general meaning of each trigram. Whereas I think, that's my personal point of view, that the value of each trigram is mainly found in your connection, your personal, intimate connection with that image. Because, for instance, trigram mountain means something entirely different for a mountaineer than someone who works at an office. And that these are the personal associations that you can't catch in a video. So preferably everybody should write his own trigram book.
True, and I would also say that those 8 trigrams, as well as representing natural phenomena, okay, they also represent, at least in my sense of kind of, the work when I'm working with them, they're archetypes. They're certain that there's, I don't know if that's a way of, if that's the right word for them, right? There's something, when we talk about wind, wood, lakes, thunder, there's something very, very archetypal about these things, which is why they also pop up all over the place in poetry in particular, I think, right? I mean, poetry is one literary form where there's so much there's so much of those there's so much content in terms of those trigrams. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
well, we're gonna see this in action, I hope, because I'd like to do, if we've got some time, and let's make some time if we can. I'd like to do a little divination, and I'd really, really love to see, okay, how you then work with those whatever trigrams come up for us, right? Yeah.
But this is one of the questions that I ask in one of my workshops, and actually I'm turning it a little bit around here. So, Steve, what trigram represents a cat?
Which of the trigrams represents?
Which trigram belongs to a cat?
I would say for me, but this is maybe also reflecting, as you said before, right? It's reflecting my relationship with cats. Cats for me are, in ways that dogs are not, they are mysterious, they are detached, they are, they sort of live on planet cat. I don't know. I would say potentially, maybe heaven. Maybe I don't feel earth for cats. Maybe water. It's hard, actually.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. What trigram would you associate with a cat?
From my personal experience with cats, for me it would be trigram lake, because to me cats, they spark joy, and for me there is something mysterious in trigram lake. There's also some sort of spiritual sense with trigram lake. That's my own personal association with lake. And cats to me are quite mysterious, but mainly the way they often do things out, well, literally inside the box and also outside the box. They are very unpredictable and do things in a quite extraordinary way sometimes. And that to me is also connected to trigram lake. But the funny thing is, when I ask my students these questions, almost all trigrams are given as an answer.
Yeah.
So,
And of course, because that's the way our mind works, right?
yes.
That our minds are just so good at finding associations,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Anything can be associated with anything else within
Yeah,
a second.
and that's actually my point. So when someone says, "Oh, trigram or cat," that the trigram wind, I would say, yeah, I can understand that. When someone says, "Ah, it's trigram water," I can say, yeah, makes sense to me. When someone says it's trigram fire, because cats can be quite attached to you as a person, I think, well, yeah, that makes sense. In other words, Steve, something can be all 8 trigrams, depending on how you approach it. And it's especially that personal connection that I find really interesting and quite important. So when someone says, no, a cat is that trigram and only that trigram, then I think, okay, we have to talk. Because everything can be all 8 trigrams as far as I'm concerned. But maybe we are digressing here.
But that's such a fascinating exercise, and I think a very useful one, right? Because just to walk around and kind of, or when you're thinking of something, think, okay, what trigram is this?
Yeah,
and right?
It's especially great to do it with people. When you're waiting on the bus and you see a person, okay, what kind of trigram is that person? He's actually quite large. He's sitting down. Oh, that might be trigram mountain.
Yeah.
Or someone who is dressed in very colorful clothing. Well, trigram fire. Can be an interesting exercise.
Yes. And I think this also sits really well for me because I play that game quite often, with my interest in the Enneagram, which again, 9 Enneagrams, 8 trigrams, because each Enneagram it's a personality style, but at its kind of core, it's a certain kind of essence. It's a certain kind of vibe, if you like. So like, for example, if I'm watching a video, an interview with someone and they're talking, just the way they sit, just the way they use their voice, just the way they express themselves, for me, because I think a lot about that paradigm, I'm like, wow, okay, they're very 7 or very 6 or very 5, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's some overlap there because when we start to really talk about essence, we start to talk about what is it that's really, whatever you understand by that, what is in your, what constitutes your soul. Some people are more fire. I mean, I'm definitely more fire than water. I know that for sure, right?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I love that. So yeah, let's talk about this other thing that I really love about you, and because I think people can get very anal, if that's the right word, or very fussy with and understandable as well, right? It can almost become like a holy text, and it's sort of like it has to be done in a certain way. We see this with the way that people use other holy texts, right? God forbid you would read the Bible on the toilet. Well, why not? Or whatever, right? And I really love this very unfussy attitude you have. I love this fact that when we were talking, you were like, whichever way. So you, for example, right, you generate often your lines using dice. Is that right?
Yeah. There are certain trigram dice that you can purchase on these Chinese websites and on eBay as well, and they contain trigrams. And because they contain trigrams, I found them very interesting. Everything that has trigrams on it, I find it interesting. So these dice, they contain the eight trigrams, even though it only has 6 sides. It actually, all 8 trigrams are on them. And I found my own way to use them to generate a hexagram. So, because most of the time when you look at the Chinese websites that describe the method for these dice, you see that they say, oh, you just pick 2 of these dice, yeah, and you look which trigram faces up. You make a hexagram of them, and then you use a normal 6-sided dice with the dots on it to determine one and only one moving line. And I thought that's a little bit too limited, so I came up with my own way to use these dice. Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, that's also what you said in your mail, what you actually are hinting on. Everything can be used as an oracle. So these dice, coins, yarrow stalk, leaves in the forest, whatever you want, circumstances, something happening. I mean, you have this method, plum blossom numerology, which is a relatively young method of Yi Jing usage that uses certain events, certain accidents, coincidences in your environment, and turns that into a hexagram. So anything can work. Number plates, if you want. So yeah, as long as it involves this idea of meaningful chance, you will never hear me complain.
Yeah. And I find that very refreshing because, recently I've been using this Oracle deck, which is just, you shuffle the deck and randomly select a card. But when I'm using it, I do sort of get a sense, I don't know, I've got some sort of itching superego or something sitting on my shoulder going like, oh, that's a lazy way to, or something, right? Like you can't even be bothered to throw the coins 6 times. Come on.
Well, Steve, I'm not sure if this is an English saying, but here in Netherlands, someone once said, if you don't make it yourself easy, then you're lazy.
Uh-huh.
So that if you don't find a way to do something in the most easy and comfortable way, then if you don't even take the effort to do that, then you're really lazy. You're not lazy because you're using a method that works faster. That doesn't make you lazy. But if you don't take the effort to use meaningful chance in the optimal way as possible, if you just think that you're throwing coins or dividing yarrow stalks and that sort of time-consuming methods, that would generate better answers. If you're really from that assumption, working from that assumption, then I think you're really lazy. You should make it yourself as easy as possible, as far as I'm concerned. These cards, they're fine. The only issue that I have with cards is that
you don't have your changing. You don't have you can't see your changing line.
You only have, when you pull one card, you only have a hexagram, which is fine. But if you pull 2 cards, then you can compare them and by comparison get these moving lines. But that can generate quite a lot of moving lines. But every method has its consequences. If you're fine with these consequences, then it will work. I'm sure of that. So if you just pull one of these cards, then you will not have moving lines. Is that a problem? No, not really. But it does limit the amount of answers that you can get. It limits it to 64. So that's not wrong, but it's the consequence of the method. So.
Yeah, because I suppose the other thing that really fascinates me, right, because again, I suppose, I don't know how to differentiate this. Maybe we could differentiate it by saying one is a sort of somewhat superstitious way of thinking, and another one, well, you can tell me what the second line, which I think is more your line of thinking, right? Because the superstitious way of thinking goes, only if I really follow through with this method and do the yarrow stalks or throw the coins and do it as it should be done, then the universe or whatever, right, will reward me by giving me the best answer, the right answer, right? Whereas I get a sense from you that you would sort of go, well, that's sort of superstitious, because in fact, okay, Steve, you've got this pack in front of you. You don't even need to shuffle them. You could, I don't know what the top card is, but you could just turn the top card, and that if you've decided that top card is your answer, that genuinely will be the answer. And I think some people be scratching their heads and going, but how? Right? Because I don't. I maybe I haven't phrased it. I haven't phrased it well. But there's some kind of philosophical, metaphysical.
But it seems like you want to do it in the correct way.
Well, I just want the best answer. Whereas you seem to be saying, hey, whatever gives you those 2 trigrams, whatever chance method gives you those 2 trigrams, that is always going to be.
That is the best answer.
There
isn't a better answer. That is one of the main assumptions or starting points or beliefs, if you want, one of the main points that is the part of my foundation of using the Zhao Yi. The answer that you get is the best answer that you can get at that very moment. There isn't a better answer somewhere around the corner. That's it. So,
but talk more about that, right? Because somebody might say, okay, well, if you took the top card, but then there's 63 other cards, you didn't even shuffle it, right? Like, how can that be the best answer? I mean, people who actually use, who've done some use. I haven't done a lot. I've done, a few months. Well, I've seen that it is the best answer because I've never got an answer and gone, I bet you there's a better one there. But how does that work? Or what's your thinking there?
I haven't got a clue about the mechanics. Don't know how the I Ching works. And to be honest, I'm not really interested in that. I'm not sure. I'm not interested in the in the cogwheels behind the whole mechanism, because when you would ask me, how do I know that one card that is on top, how do I know that is the best answer? I would simply reply, well, that's the card that you got. You didn't get any of the other 63 cards. Therefore, that's the best answer.
Yeah, but as we know, the human mind really struggles with that. It struggles with that not just when it comes to the Yi Ching, right? It struggles with that. Yeah, but I could have got this card, and I could have got that one, and I could have got that one. And who's
did
you
get that card?
This is the best?
Did you get all the other cards? No, you didn't. So, this is something that I hear a lot from skeptics, and the questions and their doubts are very valid. So because people also often say, okay, but what if I ask the same question again? Will I get the same answer? Well, yeah, that's possible, but statistically speaking, probably not.
Mm-hmm,
okay, so what does that tell me about the answer from the I Ching? If I can consult the I Ching again with the same question and get a different hexagram, and I always reply, well, why would you consult the I Ching a second time? You know what they most often reply? I don't know. I think, well, so you're creating a problem and you want me to solve it. So,
well, I think, okay, I would suggest that maybe the reason we might consult it the second time is if we don't like the answer or we feel it's not really speaking to us. But then I suspect you and I might say, well, that's because you haven't taken the time to really work with those, with what it's giving you.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you don't understand the answer from the I Ching, that in itself is very interesting. And that is far more important than the answer itself. Because what is blocking you from seeing what the I Ching is trying to tell you? And an oracle, as far as I'm concerned, would never give you an answer that you can't understand. I mean, then it would be a stupid oracle if it would give you something that you are not able to understand. So if there is something that is blocking you from understanding what you actually need to see, then a whole interesting journey starts. Because what are you kind of method are you using to interpret the answer from the I Ching? And how are you approaching the text or the trigrams or whatever? So what is it in your approach? and probably something needs to be adjusted there. And a lot of people, especially the beginning students who start with Yi Jing and focus on the text, they mainly ask the question, when they read the text from the Zhao Yi, they ask the question, okay, what does it mean? But that question is not the most important question. The most important question is, what does it say? How does it speak to me? What is the image in the text? And you start from there. And meaning can only be derived from an understanding of the image, from what the text is actually saying to you, or what the trigrams are saying to you. So, but most users immediately jump to the meaning, but you can't find the meaning if you haven't found the image and the actual voice of the Zhao Yi. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes all the sense in the world to me. So, you know, I feel like that was really just whetting. I'm hoping that's just whetting people's appetites, right? Because what I want to do, and hopefully anyone who's watching this, is like, okay, let's see this in action. Let's see what it looks like to do a divination where we work predominantly with the images. If we look at the text, we only look at that core, the judgment and the image.
No, not the image.
Oh, sorry, not the image, just the judgment. Right. Okay.
Image is part of the 10 wings. Well, it's not wrong to use the image, but I consider the image text commentary because it's part of the 10 wings. And if you look at the oldest versions of the Zhao Yi, you only have the judgment text and the line texts.
Right. So, for example, I mean, this morning I was doing a divination, actually made a little video about it, and I got Kun, the receptive, earth above earth. So you would only look at, the judgment, which is sort of
exactly
on the.
Yeah, you didn't have any moving lines.
Well, no, because I used the cards.
Okay, fine.
I use the cards, but I would suggest that maybe if that's okay, let's we can decide. We can either do coins, because the other thing that I found really fascinating and so lovely about your channel, because you really you are coming at this from a great deal of study and historical knowledge. What I found so fascinating was where you were sort of going, most people seem to believe that the yarrow stalks is kind of like the oldest and the most traditional and the best way to do it, right? But actually, it turns out that maybe the coins are, if you really want to do it sort of like, kosher, as it were, maybe the coins is the way to do it. I found that fascinating. Maybe you could say something about that.
The current yarrow stalk method that we are using and that's being described in most I Ching books is actually more or less reconstruction by a Neo-Confucianist philosopher, Zhu Xi, who lived somewhere around the year 1200 AD, I believe. Up till his time, there were about 200 different versions of the yarrow stalk method, because the yarrow stalk method is described in the Dazhuan, part of the 10 wings, but it's actually written in such a way that you can interpret the method in several ways. So a lot of philosophers mainly described how they thought the yarrow stalk method should be used, and to see criticized almost all of them and wrote his own version of that. And that's the method that we're currently using. So strictly speaking, the yarrow stalk method is that we use now is from somewhere around 1200 AD, whereas the coin method is already described in a source from around 700 AD. So actually the coin method is from that perspective older than our current yarrow stalk method. So, but what I personally don't understand is that there are a lot of people who say, well, the coin method can't work or is wrong because it doesn't have the same kind of probability as the Yarrow-Stalk method. So they come up with ways to give the coin method the same kind of probabilities as the Yarrow-Stalk method. And I think, why? Why is probability so important? I mean, whatever method you use, you will always get the answer that you need, and it will always be the best answer. So why this occupation with the probability? But anyway.
Well, it's we're talking about the psychology of superstition, which is very, very profound, as we know, and it gives us a sense of security, right? So why don't we do a divination if you're up for that?
Yeah.
I'd love to see how this all plays out.
Well, as you Englishmen say, Steve, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting.
Indeed, it really is, isn't it?
Yes.
Because I suppose my question is this, right? My question is, what is my relationship? Why is the Yi in my life now? I mean, I've known about this book as a kind of cultural phenomenon, you could say, right? Since my teenage years. I mean, this thing has always been around. It's been on people's bookshelves and whatnot. And I've picked it up and I've looked at it and been like, okay, interesting. But why now? Why now in my middle years, or my, maybe even more than middle years, my fifth decade? Why is this thing now, there at my side? That's something I thought might be interesting to kind of ask a question, as a kind of a question, if you're up for doing that.
Yes, sure, no problem.
All right. So talk me through this. So I'm gonna just throw the coins, and we'll see what lines come. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So here we go. So we've got, what do we got? 2 tails and a head. I haven't done coins for a while, so just remind me. So that is that's going to be a yang line, right?
A yang line, yeah. That would be, if you use the normal procedure, then tails would be number 2 and head would be number 3. So you have 2 plus 2 plus 3, which is 7, which is an odd line, which is a yang line, which is an...
Yeah. I mean, my method, I don't know if this makes sense. I haven't checked this out with anyone, but it seems to work, right? Is to get it at it as quickly as possible, is not to add it all up. I just go, which is the odd one out, as it were.
Yes,
which
excellent.
Right?
Yes.
And in this case, it's heads, and I know, and I've remembered that. Okay, heads is 3 and tails are 2. So boom.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, that's completely fine. Yeah.
So okay, so that's our first line. I'm going to stick that there. We've got a yang line. Okay, then we've got, so here we've got 3 heads. So this is going to be a moving, what's it called? Kind of old yang. Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Which means also that now the second trigram starts being developed. And then, okay, so we've got another yang line there, which gives us the initial trigram of sky or heaven. And fourth line, whoops, what's that? Tails, head. So that's another yang line. Okay. Fifth line, another yang line. Yeah, it's another yang line. Wow, we're gonna get yang, yang, yang all the way through. It's always exciting. Oh, and another moving. It's a moving. It's an old yang, so it's a moving line. So that gives us right, heaven over heaven, sky over sky, with a moving second and a moving sixth line. Okay, now before we go anywhere, just initially, what what do you get from that? What do you get from 6 yang lines, right?
What do you get?
What does that do to you?
What do you get from 6 young lines? A headache. No.
What is that?
No.
Yeah, just that alone.
Yeah.
What's your sense of that?
Well, my first sense that I get with this, when someone casts a hexagram like this, my first idea is always, well, isn't that amazing? I mean, you had the chance to cast several yin lines, Steve.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it.
No.
Why didn't you do it?
Exactly.
And but the fact that you get only young lines and twice trigrams heaven, it tells so much about what the Yi means to you and why it is in your life right now, because that is your question. Why is the Yi in your
That's
life?
right.
And what I often do, whoops, there goes the mic. Shall I share my whiteboard? I should have that option here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, take me through this. Whatever, it's sort of over to you in a way, right? Whatever works for you.
Yeah. Oh, is it reversed now? Is it mirrored?
Oh, cool.
Or
I could see that. Yeah. What? Yeah.
is it mirrored or normal? Because I see it mirrored here.
What do you
You
mean?
can
by
read the
mirrored?
text?
I can read the text normally, yeah.
Excellent. Then everything is going all fine. So you see here your question, why is the Yi in your life right now? And
with a moving line at the top as well, right?
oh yeah, I that for some reason that was removed. One moment. There we are. So this is your hexagram.
Yes.
And I always start from this idea that you, as the person who consulted the Yi Jing, you are the lower trigram. And everything that is not you is the upper trigram. So, one of my students a few days ago asked, okay, but what if there isn't a second party? What if there is only one subject? And I said, well, there is always a second party, because there's always you and it's something outside of you. There is you and a goal that you would like to achieve. And in this case, there is you and the I Ching. These are the two main subjects in your question or situation. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So you could say, and this is not, I'm not saying that this is the right way, but this is just one of the many ways. You could say, well, if you are the lower trigram, then you could say that the Yi, being the other part of your question, is the upper trigram.
Yeah.
And the trigram heaven, for me, is this trigram of intention and focus, and deciding on this specific point on the horizon, choosing a direction. So if you ask why is the Yi in my life now, and you get trigram heaven, then I would say, well, it's in your life because it helps you to focus, to choose a direction. If you focus, it means that everything else that you are not focusing on is more or less discarded for the time being. So it helps you to focus on that which is what is relevant to you. And that is the reason why the Yi is in your life now, to focus, to find guidance, because trigram heaven, that's the leader of the 8 trigrams. So it's a trigram of the father, and it's a trigram of choosing your own path. But it's also a trigram because it lacks yin lines. It's a trigram that is mainly about all the things that you can't touch. It's everything that is happening inside your head. It's about thinking. It's everything that is spiritual, has to do with religion, intention. Well, all these abstract ideas, concepts, these are all related to trigram heaven. And that is why the Yi is in your life now, to start working with ideas and with concepts, and finding the focus within these ideas and concepts. It's not about realizing these. It's not about manifesting ideas, because for that the trigram heaven would need yin lines, and they are not there. This is mainly about brainstorming, and not so much about making sure that ideas are feasible. It's mainly about thoughts and ideas. So, and that's you as a lower trigram. Does this still make sense?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. You know what it makes me think of, which in fact I use it in my little YouTube description, right? It makes me think of, you know, this poem that I really love, this William Stafford poem, which goes, there's a thread you follow, it goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. Very Tao, time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread.
No.
Right? It's not about doing, it's about holding on to a kind of a thread. And so when I see these I find it very moving in a way, actually. When I see these 6 lines, I'm like, wow, yeah, these are my threads. These are those threads, right?
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, exactly.
Unbroken threads. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But in this case, it's a thread that is immediately created by focus and by intention.
Yeah.
That is what creates the thread. And without that focus and intention, there is no thread. But that makes this whole trigram also a little bit elusive, because it isn't something that you can literally show to people. Because I can show you the mic here. This is mic. It's something I can touch and I can show it to you. But with trigram heaven, that is almost impossible, because everything that is invisible belongs to trigram heaven, belongs to yang. Whereas everything that is concrete, that can be touched, that can be seen, that belongs to yin. This is all yang. So, but I think that is why the Yi is in your life now, to share that aspect, that focus that you currently have, and to share that with others, because you could also say that if you are the lower trigram, then you could also say that the upper trigram are all other people in your surrounding, and you are both the same trigram, so you are sharing the same thing here.
That's right.
And
yeah.
so, and maybe that is why the Yi is in your life now, to share your focus, your intention, your ideas. And I think that is the most important thing in this hexagram, to realize that it's not about making it concrete, but it's mainly about sharing these thoughts and these ideas and the focus that you have. And I think the I Ching can be a very helpful tool for that. So you could, because you can always ask the I Ching, what should I focus on?
Yes.
And then you get an answer, and that could give you some sort of idea to some sort of image to work with, to give you some sort of focus. So in your case, because you're working so much with poetry, you can use the trigrams to use them as some sort of mirror of the poems and poetry that you know. Because if a trigram lake might remind you of a certain poem, and trigram wind, or a combination of these, and that can give you some sort of focus as a starting point. So I think the I Ching could be just that, finding your focus and intention. So, and it's, you know, it's the first hexagram in the I Ching. It's just the starting point of everything.
Right. That's right.
So, and that's it. And from there, everything starts to evolve. So, But you have two moving lines in the
Yes,
hexagram.
let's think about these, because because in the U part there's that middle movement, and in the Yi part there's the top line of the trigram.
Yeah. And to me, this is how I must emphasize this. This is how I use moving lines. This isn't the right way of using moving lines. This isn't necessarily how they did it in the old days, but this is the way that resonates with me. This works quite well. The way that I see them, this moving line in the second place, so there, changes the trigram to trigram fire. And this
Fire,
lower trigram heaven,
fire,
because fire, and because of this moving line, this trigram heaven is slightly imbalanced. It's a little bit too much heaven. So the more moving lines you have in trigram, the more imbalanced it becomes. So in your case, you only have one moving line, and that means the trigram is slightly imbalanced, which means that with trigram heaven, you're a little bit too narrow-minded. You only see one aspect, and there's a little bit of egoistic way of thinking about your approach to the I Ching, as if, well, this is the right way and this is the only way. I'm exaggerating now. But what you need to restore the balance in trigram heaven is this trigram fire. You use the changed trigram to restore the balance in the first trigram. And fire is this trigram of connecting and seeing with your eyes, that because the eyes are connected to trigram fire. So it's this idea of passion. What makes you feel warm inside? And you use that aspect to restore the balance in trigram heaven. A trigram heaven which is imbalanced becomes a little bit too, what's the right word? Rationalistic? Is that the right word?
or even maybe it's too conceptual. It's all about concepts, but it's not really speak necessarily. And I have a lot of capacity to do this. I often think when I put my videos out there, I think, God, they're very, very abstract. But right, so it's finding, as you say, finding that fire which speaks to people, which touches.
Yeah, and you can also ask yourself, can I make it visible? Can I really show it, either in your environment or something else? And then you have found a connection, because fire is about seeing. If this trigram would have changed to trigram water, I would say the water is connected to the ears. So I would say, is it something that you can make audible? Can you use sound, for instance? But in this case, you have trigram fire, which is connected to seeing, which is connected to the visual arts. So painting, that kind of things. If you can make it visible, if you can really show it, like you do in your videos, then you have found the right connection. If you can't find that connection, then maybe you can try to find another way to deal with your intention or your abstract concept. This idea of fire is important to make it, as you say, more get it out of the conceptual phase and make it more visible. But also, what is really important is that you show your attachment to it. Why does it make you feel warm inside? Why is it important to you? And that you explain and make visible that connection. Because what you describe, I must confess, that is actually how I've watched your videos, Steve, and I find them really difficult to watch, mainly because they are so abstract. And I often think, okay, where's he going?
Yeah.
And I haven't got a clue. And I like the poems that you're talking about, but sometimes I think, okay, at the end I think, okay, what's the point?
Yeah.
What can you give me something that I can cling on to, like fire clings to something? So,
and it's interesting you should say that, because actually, in terms of that channel, I'm just trying to work out what I'm doing on there. At the moment, it's just like I'm just like seeing what throw everything at it and see what I don't have it's not as structured and as conceptualized as yours is, which is why I love yours, because it's sort of like it's like having a really interesting, fun how to how to for the I Ching. It's very much more of an educational resource as much as anything else.
Yeah, well, fortunately, your videos are much shorter than mine.
Well, I don't know. I could go on, but I am. It's interesting. I'm definitely. I'm moving towards more kind of doing slightly more focused things. So so that's interesting that should come up. So what about the Yi though, having that? And also, what about the placement of the lines? So, that's a second line.
Yeah, the second line to me is the line of let's just start with the first line. You don't have it moving, but just to get the general idea, the first line is the line of starting. That's the lowest line. This line of starting. That's also the line of you have an idea, but you don't really have anything concrete yet. It's just something that you want. It's some sort of desire, but there isn't really anything yet. It's like you have this idea of that you're going to start a factory with making Barbie dolls, and that's at the first line. But that's all you have. But then at the second line, you have your business plan. And so you have written everything down, and then you have to go to the bank to apply for a loan, which means you have to share your idea. Okay, and that's, to me, the second line is that line of, well, you are going outside, you're sharing your ideas, and you have to stand by them, and you have to motivate them, explain them, etc. So the second line to me is that line of moving forward into the outside world. With the first line, you're still hidden. Nobody can see that you have this idea to start a factory in Barbie dolls. But with the second line, you have to show it. So that's the line of going outside. So, and for doing that, you need this trigram fire. What
right?
is
Yeah, and it's interesting that then also takes us to the fire, right? That creates the fire.
Yes.
That second line. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So,
and the third line, what would the third line?
Well, then, but the third line, you got your loan. You have your loan from the bank, and your factory is actually producing the Barbie dolls. And that's the line where you start to think, okay, is this what I actually wanted when I was at the first line? Is that what I had in mind? So that's the line of doubt and insecurity, and where you're going to decide whether you're going to move forward, or you're going to say, well, I quit and I start all over again. So the third line is often considered the most challenging line of the line, because you're more or less halfway the hexagram, and you have to decide, well, is this the right process for me? So that's the line of making difficult choices. So whereas, and with the fourth line, that's the line of the minister, and then you
the line of the minister, did you
the
say?
minister, yeah, the line of the minister, and
in the sense of what?
The ministers, the people at the court of the king, who were the advisors of the king, and had to make sure that the orders from the king, who is actually the fifth line, that these were carried out. So these are actually the main helping people. Like, for instance, in this case of, you started your factory and you decided to continue with your factory, and now you realize that you can't do it on your own. So you need someone to do the bookkeeping. You need someone for the PR, marketing, etc. So you're going to get all these extra troops to help you, and to so you can focus on that which really matters to you, and so you're going to use all these experts, which ministers often were. And with the fifth line, then you decide how everything is going. You're the leader of the hexagon with the fifth line. You're the king. So that the fifth line often indicates, well, please remember, you are in control and nothing else. The fourth line often says, well, you don't have to do it all on your own. There are resources that you can use to your advantage. Whereas the fifth line says, well, you have to remember that you are the one who is pulling the strings here. And now with the sixth line, which you also have moving, it means, well, with sixth line, you say, well, this has been fun. I'm going to retire. I'm going to sell my company. and I'm going to prepare myself for a new start. And you also have the sixth line moving, and the sixth line is the line of putting a certain phase to an end, putting a closure to it. You're going to look back and reflect on what you have learned, and as a preparation for the next phase that is coming. So the sixth line often means, well, that you are in a phase to that you're saying, well, this has fulfilled its purpose. It's time for something new.
Man,
And
that's so interesting. Yeah.
and
No, I mean, the reason I'm go on, sorry.
and that is why the Yi is in your life now, to
Right.
find that
Yeah,
proper
yeah.
focus for that new start. You're currently still re-evaluating everything that you did. You're still on the, you're more or less on the top of the mountain and looking down from how on earth did I get here? And you're looking back and say, well, that was an interesting journey. And you're now going to prepare for the new start. You're not there yet, but that's not really, it's very rewarding to look back.
True, but it's strange because, of course, you know, the Yi is connected to this channel I have, but you know, recently, and in fact, this is something I'm going to do, which I also consulted the Yi about, but you know, I've had an idea for kind of like an offshoot channel in a way, you know, but just sort of taking everything I've learned from so far, you know, making these videos on this thing and making actually something a little bit more focus. I'm not ready to do with the Yi Jing, but keeping on doing these because I just love these, but these for what they are. But it's so interesting because this really is speaking to kind of where I'm at the moment, which is kind of working out, speaking to my advisors, you know, my couple of friends who I'll sort of speak to and say, oh, should I do this or should I do that, right? So that's very much there in, you know, speaking to the ministers, and then interesting that there should be that movement at the top of the Yi.
And
Trigram.
what you need for that, because that moving line changes the trigram heaven to trigram lake.
Yes.
And you know,
Joy.
Yes, it's as simple
And in
as
fact,
that.
this new channel, just thinking about it, does actually fill me with joy.
Excellent.
It really does.
what the hexagram one with the two moving lines actually advising you maybe is to get out of this realm of all the abstract ideas and concepts.
Yes.
And using fire and lake, so visuals, but also this idea of joy, everything that makes you happy, as maybe as a new starting point. So and because by doing that, and that doesn't mean that hexagon 1 is going away, because that is giving you the right focus, but you're going to combine it with trigram lake and with trigram fire in a way that makes this whole hexagon 1 less conceptual, I think, and way more fun, I think, because the problem that I have with the trigram heaven is that it's all mind work. It's all about the ratio and thinking. It's not so much about feeling. And whereas trigram lake, to me, has everything to do with feeling. But trigram lake never asks itself why it feels joy.
Yes.
It is not interested in why am I experiencing it. It's just there and it accepts it for what it is. So, and that is what I like about trigram lake, because it's just this simple focus on what makes you feel good, what makes you happy. And you know, the question what makes you happy is a question that children are not taught at school. You are asked at school, okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you have to name some kind of profession. You have to, or when my son has to know what he will become when he's old. He's only 13 years old, and by now he's already asked the question, what do you want to be? Well, my answer would be, I want to be happy. But anyway, that's not the answer that they expect. So that's a question that's not really asked. What makes you happy? Whereas I think that is very a core value in everybody's life. So, and in your case, that is what you need to find the right focus. It's not so much about abstract ideas and the concepts, but it's mainly about what makes you happy and what do you attach to, Steve? Because fire is a trigram that attaches to something. Fire can only burn when it has the right fuel, and it will always look for the right fuel. So, what is your fuel, Steve? And what makes you happy? So, and it's a pity that you only have 6 young lines, because otherwise we would have a little bit more different trigrams. But I think this mainly shows how I would interpret a hexagram, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is so brilliant because it also shows, right? We haven't talked about the judgment. I mean, I'm going to read for us the judgment in a moment in a slightly fun way. I want to see what you think of this fun way of accessing judgment.
Fun is good.
But I'm going to read the judgment in a moment in a kind of a fun way. But wow, I can really honestly say, if we were to stop here without me seeing the judgment, without me having talked about it, without me even looking at the commentaries, I feel very, very satisfied with that divination, right? I feel like, wow, I've really got such rich pickings. I'm looking forward to listening to this conversation again, because even just while you were talking, I was like going, yeah, that connects to that, and that connects to that, and that, right?
Oh, excellent. But that's what is really important, Steve, that you connect all the elements that I tell about, because I'm mainly telling you my view of the trigrams, hoping that you will find a connection.
Yeah.
But if it works like that, excellent. If you are able to connect it, then I think, then I'm more or less on the right track with regard to your
on the right track. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so if you've got another 5 minutes, let's bring in the judgment here, right? But instead of reading it, of course, I could read it from the Yi Jing. But recently, I've been doing this thing, which I've just a fun thing. But I found it kind of interesting, and that is getting ChatGPT to take the judgment from the Zhou and to give it to me through as if it was written by a particular writer. And you can name any writer you like, but at the moment, because I'm really sort of fascinated and interested in this early 20th century writer called Gertrude Stein, who had this particular, I don't know if you've ever come across Gertrude Stein and her stuff. I mean, she was a sort of very quite avant-garde writer of the early 20th century, I think would be the best way of describing her. But she's got this very, very particular kind of style. It's quite repetitive. Once you've read a paragraph of Gertrude Stein, it's a certain kind of music, and you just know that. And so what I did this morning, and what I'm going to do again for us, is I'm going to ask GPT to give us the judgment in the style of Gertrude Stein.
And why are you going to do that, Steve?
Because I'm an idiot.
Why isn't
I'm a creative idiot. I just love that. No. But hang on a second. It's not going to change. I can see your purest spirit stepping in here. It's still going to have dragons, and it's going to have everything there. It's going to be, well, let me give it to you, right? Let me give it to you.
No. Because there's one thing that it doesn't have. Everything that ChatGPT will produce there's one very important thing that will be lacking. And that is the original text from the judgment.
This isn't the original anyway. This is a text that was translated into German, then translated into English. I mean, it's been through about 500 different translations before it's actually reached
No,
us.
not really. You can trust me on this. The text from Wilhelm is actually a very precise translation of the Chinese characters. So you can trust me on that. So the judgment text from Wilhelm is fine. So
okay, just for fun, you said you were up for fun. Let's read both, okay, just to see. Just to see, because I don't know, I just love what it does with this. But it's interesting because having looking at the judgment, and the judgment here is 2 lines, and they've given me 4 lines in terms of Gertrude Stein's version. But okay, let me read let me read both because I do think that the essence is in the Stein as well. But so here's the judgment, which I'm sure you know well. Is that really it? It's literally just 2 lines, which is the creative works sublime success, furthering through perseverance. The creative works sublime success, furthering through perseverance. If you were to give that to Gertrude Stein would say, Gertrude Stein through GPT would be, this is the Stein version, creativity, always moving and moving, strong, very strong, strength in the rising, strength in the staying. The noble one rises, he rises because rising is being is rising. Time to act, but the time is never done. Always another act, another rising. The power is there, strong, very strong. It is the power.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. Does it stray that far from or does it capture something essential of the judgment?
Well, even if it would capture something essential, I wouldn't really be interested in that text because it's not the Zhao Yi.
Because it's not the Zhao Yi.
No, this is just typical me, Steve. What
you're a purist.
Yeah, definitely. I want you to work with the Zhao Yi. If you were my student, I would say never do this again.
No, Gertrude Stein for you.
Yeah, because I want you to work with the Zhao Yi and nothing else but the Zhao Yi. So, and now you are replacing the text from the judgment.
You are my guru, so I will obey. I will. No, seriously, I will do that. I mean,
know.
I did it this morning, and I just thought it was. No. I thought it was a fun thing to do, but I will do that. Okay, so coming back to the judgment, right? Okay, so I'm your student now. You're my guru, and you are the creative work's sublime success, furthering through perseverance.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Yeah. What does one do with that? I'm like, okay, the creative. Yeah, I'm a creative sort of person. I want some sublime success, whatever that means.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah.
And I'm willing to persevere. Okay, job done. What else?
Yeah. But please go back to your question, Steve. You asked, why is the Yi in my life now? And these actually only 4 characters in the Chinese original. Only 4 Chinese characters, which are translated like this in Wilhelm's version, but it doesn't mention the key terms, the key words in the Chinese original. So why is the Yi in your life now? You can simply look at all these main words. Why is the Yi in your life now? Creativity. That is why the Yi is in your life now, because of creativity. That is what it, and I think that is, you can relate to that. Because if you look, So then works through sublime success. What does sublime mean to you?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's so interesting because, of course, this is taking us into the space of heaven, right? Sublime success for me, at least for my personality style. No, it doesn't mean having, I mean, it would be nice, but it doesn't mean having 100,000 followers, although a little bit, right?
But your question was not so much about your YouTube channel, Steve. It was about your life. So I think what
but you see, but that's the thing. That's where that word creative is so important a word for me, because for me, when I feel most alive is when I am creative. That, you know, my life is a good life when it's a creative life, and it's not a good life when it's not a creative life.
And maybe that is the judgment text is mainly a description of what you're saying now, because that is what the I Ching is giving you, wisely in your life, because it gives you this idea of sublime success through creativity. It makes your life, turns your life into sublime success. It's in your way of living your life in the most successful way, and that it goes beyond your YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that is what I think, because I try to relate it to your question, which is about the Jing in your life. So, and I think that is the creativity with which helps you to reach this point of, because sublime. Is there anything that surpasses sublime? I wonder. I think it's the best that you can get. Sublime success.
Well, sublime is heaven, right? It's
Yeah.
heaven on earth.
Yeah.
You know, if people go, well, this is heaven on earth, right? Then
Yeah,
you might as well say
exactly.
this is sublime. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, exactly that. So I think that is what creativity means in your life, to reach this point, or help you strive, or give you the focus to reach that. And maybe you're not ever going to achieve that, but that's your focus. That is trigram heaven twice. So this sublime success, I think, is that is the reason why the is in your life, to give you the focus to achieve that.
I mean, it's all very true. It's all absolutely 100% spot on. There's no, but is it spot on because, right? Let's imagine one of the skeptics here watching this video and going, like,
I
what
like
would
that.
skeptics be saying, right? They'd be going, yeah, but is it spot on because, right? I mean, whatever Harmen's going to say, and having the minds we have, we're going to just kind of go like, yeah, you know, again, it's the thing that's often said against astrology, right? Certainly, sort of in terms of, you know, the sort of stuff you find in the newspapers, like this week this is going to happen, or this is what your life is about at the moment. Sure, you use these kind of very vague, generic concepts, or let's just say generic concepts. Of course, everyone's going to be able to find something.
Oh,
That
definitely, yeah.
that.
Steve, you if you would have cast hexagram 15, for instance,
Yeah,
I could have interpreted that in such a way, with the same question, in such a way that you would say, that makes absolutely perfect sense to me. If you would have gotten hexagram 47, and which has completely different trigrams, I could interpret that for you in such a way that you would say, well, that is spot on.
but hang on, is this the skeptic talking, or is this what you actually believe? Because
This is what I
now,
actually
having
believe.
got that trigram, and this happens with every time I do a divination, I look at that and go, I don't want another one. I don't need another one. That is it. That's the
Yeah, but
answer.
it is it. And it is this because you got this. You didn't get any of the other 64 hexagrams. This is what you got. So this is the answer. But that doesn't mean that all the other 63 hexagrams can't be applicable as well.
Right.
But is that relevant? No, because you got this hexagram. You did not get all the other hexagrams. So, but you know, to me,
So is it a bit like going to see a play and there are 63, what are those people called who, you know, if the main actor can't be on stage, you know, 63 standbys or whatever, there's a special word for them. I can't remember what it is now. Like, and you know, just in case the main actor can't be there. So you're sort of saying, and if that main actor, the one that you had, I don't know, like people go and see a play because it's got so and so in it, right? Because that main actor wasn't in it, but the understudy, there we go. We bring on one of the understudies. You're going to enjoy this musical or this play just as much with the understudy. And I'm like going, no, I would not enjoy it as much with the understudy. I have to, it was that one or none of them.
Yeah, but in this case, in this specific analogy, you know that you're missing the main character. Whereas with consulting, well, you know that the main actor or character is missing.
Right.
You know that, whereas when you consult Yi Jing, you don't know what you are missing.
That's
So,
right.
but in my but this is my personal opinion. In my opinion, every hexagram fits at every moment. Every one of the 64 hexagram fits. With your question, every of the 64 hexagram fits, but there is one that fits the most, and that's the one that you're getting. That's my personal opinion.
But again, right, the skeptic says, yeah, but how? How does that work? Because I think the skeptic could go, okay, that makes a lot of sense, right? There has to be, and they would talk about, I mean, various sort of psychological techniques that are used by people who supposedly, the tricksters of this world who can supposedly read people's minds, and cold readings, I think they're called, right? Where you mention all these things, and then people go, yeah, that's me, and right. But so I think most of us, including all the skeptics, would go, okay, sure, I can absolutely see how those 64 can be made to work. But then you throw the curveball and say, yeah, but actually the one you got was the best one.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, well, I leave that up to you, Steve, to find that out, because
What's your theory? You must have a
not,
theory. You've been doing this for decades.
Yeah, but I'm not interested.
Do you use a word like
how.
magic? Do you use a word because people would say, okay, this is magic. This is just magic, right? We don't believe in magic anymore, but this is magic.
Yeah, but Steve, I'm not interested in the how. I really
You're not interested in the how?
Definitely not. As long as I get a hexagram, I'm fine. How it is generated, what it generates the hexagram, what is behind it, what kind of spirit.
Why are you not interested in the how? Is it just because your mind just doesn't go there? Right? Because you are someone who is very incredibly thoughtful and conceptual, and you're interested in so many things. So why wouldn't you be interested in the how?
I don't know, but it's the same kind of question as you're asking me, why are you interested in cars? I'm really not interested in cars. So, but why am I not interested in cars? I haven't got a clue. I'm just not interested. And it's the same for the how. I'm not really interested in the how, as long as it works. And it works. I mean, and that's what counts. So, and there are a lot of, it's mainly philosophy in China which try to explain how the I Ching works.
Okay, tell me some of that, because you've read. Okay, so you're not interested in the how, but you've read probably more than I have what the how, other people's thoughts about the how. So give me a couple of give us a couple of hows that you've come across. You might not be interested in them, but what would they be?
The old ideas about how the how is. That the answer is generated by the ancestors. They manipulate the coins in such a way, or the arrow stock in such a way, that it generates an answer which reflects how they look at your question or situation. That's as far as I know, it was all spirits and ancestors, and they were as much as part of your life as the living people. So
I like that. I like the idea. I mean, more ancestors than spirits for some reason, but
but I also that also resonates with me, this idea of ancestors, because and that's more in science they say nothing gets lost. The amount of energy in the universe is the same, which means that all these people who have died, which were energy in some form, they're still there, because energy, the amount of energy in the universe is the same. So as far as I'm concerned, all these ancestors are still here in some sort of form. So that is why I can relate to that idea of ancestors, because and this is also some sort of inner feeling, I have this feeling that they are still there. I don't know how, but when I ask myself this question, are these ancestors still there? I feel this strong yes. And that's all I can say about it. And that is why I resonate with that idea of ancestors, because you're using something that is, as far as I'm concerned, still here. So, but that's, as far as I know, the oldest explanation. And later on, you got these explanations about resonance, that the hexagram that you get is some sort of resonance with your current situation. And it's the whole idea of Ganying, which is translated as resonance. And just like when the G string, you have two G strings on the guitar, and when you pluck the low G string, then the high G string resonates with that. And that idea was also projected on the I Ching. So that's the more or less philosophical explanation. But to be honest, Steve, I haven't really read that much about the philosophy of the I Ching. Because I'm not really interested in that. Sorry. I'm mainly interested in the history and early usage of the Jiaoyi, and the language and excavated manuscripts and that kind of stuff. So, and philosophy is not that. I think that's more your cup of tea.
Maybe. But anyway, I mean, that's a good note, I guess, maybe on which to end, right? Because again, to sort of tell people to go to your channel, I'll put all the links there, to YouTube, and because yeah, you know, it's all done in a very approachable and fascinating way, and I am just truly overjoyed. Thank you so much for doing that divination, because it was such a meaningful, we talk about meaningful chants, it was really meaningful for me. A lot of things you said really went deep, so I really appreciate that. Thank you.
It has been my pleasure, Steve.